Thank you, Chair. And it's great to have our first public meeting. A lot of people are very interested in this subject, and I think we have a huge responsibility on our shoulders. So I look forward to working with everybody so that we can produce a comprehensive and hopefully an action-oriented report. And I want to welcome our colleagues from the NCSE here today. You said, John, you're fairly new to this job, so I want to wish you well. My first question refers to the emergency legislation we'll be debating on Friday. Now, a number of people have referred to it, and indeed, Pádraig's intervention has sort of changed my question a little bit, because I was going to ask why we need emergency legislation, because you said you advised the Minister and that you have a database, 5-year projections, etc. And I was thinking that if all of that is in place, then in theory at least, we shouldn't need emergency legislation. So in that context, I have two questions. First of all, do you feel that there might be a need to update the database, the information you have? Or if not, and Pádraig spoke about the collaborative model. Now, I'm not here to apportion blame, but in some way, if it's not working, and if it's not working well, then what changes perhaps need to be made? Because it's absolutely crucial that that works. There's no point in complaining that it doesn't work. These children need our support. So that's my first two questions.
In terms of what we've achieved so far, quite significant progress has been made, and that can only be achieved with the engagement and collaboration that we've had with so many schools. And to, as I would have mentioned to Deputy Tully earlier, to actually open the school community to developing and supporting students with special education needs. That's a very transformative journey for schools. And within the NCSE, we're greatly appreciative of the collaborative efforts of so many schooling communities of subscribing to that.
Are there enough supports, John, for schools? Because change is always very difficult. You were a school principal, you know that.
More and more, and so many previous speakers have contributed to that, more and more supports are actually required in the sense of various policy advices that the NCSE would have developed over the years. The submissions from the education partners are continually looking for further support. Tremendous support is required in terms of the development of the leadership capacity, in terms of the development, the enhancement, enrichment and teaching learning methodologies. More and more support is required.
Is it being given? Is it available? Is it there? Do schools feel that this is here for us and we can use it?
I do believe that they feel that it's there, but I think they're also asking for more of it in terms of a progressive approach, in terms of continually reviewing the quality of teaching learning for students with a special education need. I think the education partners, and again in our ongoing engagements, and particularly in the last week, they're continually and rightly so, seeking more support and encouragement in terms of ultimately what they're endeavouring and setting out to do. Just getting back to your specific query then in relation to the legislation, by and large the collaboration approach has worked. Some hotspots do arrive in terms of opening special classes as quickly as we would like, because we're always weighing it up in terms of the speed and pace and the capacity of the individual school allied to the need in terms of a special class placement for parents. And when I speak to parents and I see the hurt and frustration in their eyes, I know what needs to be done or what has to be done, and whatever action is taken with a view to delivering on that particular placement. And it's a step that none of us actually we prefer, whether it is from the NCSE perspective, and I know the department and indeed the Minister, it's a step we'd rather to be avoiding. But if it's a step that has to be taken with a view to securing places.
Yes, I hear what you're saying, but I would sort of look at it from the other perspective. And I hear what you say about certain hotspots, that change is always difficult. Yeah. It's difficult in any institution, educational the same as all others. And in order for change to happen, significant supports are needed,
Yeah.
and the carrot is much more important than the stick. Now, I'm not saying the legislation is the stick, but it is to some extent. Can I just follow on with another question which relates to that? You spoke about the courses for teachers in St. Angela's in Sligo and about the courses for SNAs. Can I ask you, do you feel that sufficient courses, seminars, educational opportunities are in place for teachers, that sufficient numbers will be there? Secondly, you said about 3,500 SNAs. Do you have a time frame on that? How many this year, next year, the year after? And thirdly, last week I spoke to some childcare providers. Many childcare providers have level 6, level 7 qualifications. They close during the summer, and they made the point that there is perhaps a real opportunity there with perhaps a little bit of further education where they could help provide July provision, summer provision. Now, I know that's, I think, not directly your responsibility, but would you think that it would be worth your while considering liaising with whether it's childcare providers or indeed schools on extra places for July provision, which is, I don't need to tell you, it's hugely important.
Thanks, Deputy. And I suppose just to start with some of the queries you've raised there in terms of professional development for teaching staff, that's ultimately the first starting point here in terms of bringing in, and as you rightly allude to, the necessary change, the necessary development of leadership, the teaching, learning, the development capacity within the school. That's the first step in terms of professional development. Now, the department for many years, indeed decades at this stage, have been supporting staff in participating on very up to speed in professional development courses at postgraduate level, particularly with St. Angela's and Sligo. Also the progression to the master's programme that's envisaged there. We have been reflecting and developing our own portfolio, particularly for the context and focus here for this Autism Committee, in a whole range of programmes, right across the sensory, communication, interaction, assessment, planning, the curriculum access aspects of autistic programme development itself. One of our particularly targeted areas was in relation to the support and development CPD for the SNA programme. I'll invite my colleague Paula to elaborate a bit more on that in just a minute. But I just want to concur with you the importance of the summer programme. It's a programme that the department have very much been leading to in terms of the development, enhancement and rollout.
But so much more is needed. But you know
there is so much more. We've supported in terms of various materials, and I think all avenues have to be, as of just yesterday, I would have met with parents who were very concerned in terms of access to the summer programme. So various avenues, every avenue has to be explored with a view to enhancing participation. And again, it was very much articulated very strongly to me yesterday, and I saw the anxiety and concern for the next couple of weeks from parents. Paula, I'll pass over to you at this stage in relation to the SNA programme.
And I suppose my answer will in part respond to a query that Deputy Karen McNeill mentioned earlier as well in relation to the CPD of teachers. So currently we provide a lot of training for teachers with regard to supporting students with autism. However, we've ongoing policy recommendations that CPD for teachers with regard to SEN should be mandatory, according to the Teaching Council. That has been recommended in several of policy documents, but it currently is not mandatory. So it is.
Do you believe it should be?
Well, we recommend that it is.
Policy.
So yes, we do recommend that it should be. And I think that with regard to building capacity of schools to meet the needs of students with SEN.
Our time is running down. Do you have any numbers for me?
Numbers, no, not currently. But just your question around the SNA course. So we're training 3,500, as you know, and it's over 3.5. At the moment, we have 1,500 that have just graduated. There'll be another finished the course. 500 have graduated, 1,000 are graduating in September. We have another 1,000 that will be enrolling the course in this September and the following September. So given that we've 19 in the system, it's a really good multiplier effect for the system to support students.
Okay,
to meet the
just a
needs.
final comment. A lot of speakers have spoken about the need for the wraparound therapies for students, etc. And like all of you, I've had many parents, especially from Sligo, speak about the lack of this. One question, how much of your budget did you spend last year? Do you know your budget?
In what area in terms of budget level?
Your overall budget?
We would have spent it all in terms of allocation itself. What we didn't spend was some of the staffing deficits. That would have been the only...
Could you send me detail on that,
Yes,
please?
I can, certainly can.
Thank you.
I also want to just provide, I think it's very useful in detail just to give you now in relation to the CPD supports for staff. Like last year, we would have, you know, this current academic year, we would have provided and engaged with over 5,000 teachers in terms of various CPD initiatives. We would have delivered over 8,300 professional learning days. We would have delivered over 250 external programs and then conducted close to 200,000 in school visits as such in terms of our contribution to that change initiative that's required.
Thank you.